Old coffee can, buried under decades of loose change, yet when it finally resurfaced, it carried a price tag that stunned the entire coin world. A 2009 no-mint Mark Lincoln Memorial penny, worth up to $2 million, imagine it. A single copper coin, so ordinary that millions of Americans have spent it without a second glance. And yet, hidden in its small design is a secret that has transformed everyday pocket change into a life-changing fortune. Collectors still talk about the day this story broke. An unassuming man walked into a coin shop, thinking he had nothing more than an odd little penny in his hand. He almost gave it away. But when the dealer leaned closer, his hands began to shake. What he saw changed everything, because this wasn't just any penny. This was the 2009 no-mint Mark Memorial Lincoln cent, a coin with errors and mysteries so rare, experts say only a handful will ever be found. And one of them, in pristine condition, sold for a figure that most people still can't believe, over $1 million, but here's the chilling part. Most people who owned this coin, spent it. Tossed it into vending machines, handed it over for a pack of gum, or left it at the bottom of a jar, never knowing they were holding a small fortune. Because the difference is so small, so unbelievably subtle, that you could stare right at it and never notice. But what if I told you that with just a little knowledge, you could spot this exact penny in your own home? The year 2009 was supposed to be a celebration of Abraham Lincoln's 200th birthday. The U.S. Mint released special designs honoring different chapters of his life. But in that whirlwind of production, with billions of pennies rushing through the presses, something went terribly wrong. Minting mistakes crept in. Missing mint marks. Struck through errors. Double dies that made Lincoln's features appear ghost-like. These weren't just imperfections, they were miracles for collectors. Because while ordinary 2009 pennies are everywhere, the rare error varieties are worth thousands, even millions. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One of these no-mint Mark Memorial cents appeared at auction, and the bidding war erupted like wildfire. Dealers shouted, collectors raised their hands, and the numbers climbed higher and higher. When the hammer finally fell, the crowd was silent. No one expected a single penny to sell for a figure so astronomical. $2 million for a coin that could have easily been mistaken for pocket change. Think about that for a moment. A coin most people would never even look at twice, instantly transformed into a treasure more valuable than gold. It was a story that traveled across headlines, across collector communities, across living rooms where people rushed to dump out their change jars in disbelief, and yet, the question still lingers. Could there be another one? Could there be more 2009 no-mint Mark Memorial pennies still out there, hiding, waiting to be discovered? Collectors believe the answer is yes. The mint didn't just produce one mistake. Error coins rarely come as single accidents. For every one that surfaces, there could be dozens more, buried in circulation, waiting for sharp-eyed treasure hunters to recognize them, but most people miss it. They hold the coin in their hands, but they don't know what to look for. That's why, even today, the chance of stumbling across this fortune still exists. Let's reset here, because this is where it gets exciting. If you're watching right now, you're about to learn exactly how to tell if your 2009 penny is the $1 million kind. And I promise, once you know the secret, you'll never look at a penny the same way again. Start with the mint mark. Normally, pennies are stamped with a tiny letter under the year, D for Denver, S for San Francisco, or nothing at all if struck in Philadelphia. But in 2009, some memorial cents slipped through without the proper minting detail, making them no-mint mark rarities. Those are the ones that trigger heart-stopping excitement at auctions. Next, look closely at Lincoln's image. On some of these rare pieces, doubling can be seen in his face, his coat, even the lettering of Liberty. To the untrained eye, it looks like nothing. But under a magnifying glass, it's unmistakable, and worth a fortune. And here's a chilling twist. Many of these coins were released during the recession, when people were barely paying attention to what was in their pockets. That means thousands may have already slipped by unnoticed. Could one of them be sitting in your drawer right now? Collectors were shocked to learn just how many ordinary people had struck gold, or copper, without realizing it. A cashier in Ohio. A teenager in California. A retired veteran in Texas. All of them stumbled upon rare 2009 cents worth small fortunes. And with each story, the legend grew, but the $1 million miracle, that was the one that shook the community. A coin so rare, so pristine, so historically significant, that wealthy collectors battled to own it. The final price tag? A staggering $2 million, and still, whispers remain. Could another one surface? Could another ordinary American, pulling coins from change, become the next overnight millionaire? The dealers say yes. They're still searching. They're still bidding. And the values keep climbing, because the demand for these rare era coins has only intensified. So here's the takeaway. If you find a 2009 penny, don't dismiss it. Hold it up to the light. Check for the missing mint mark. Look for doubling. Inspect the details. Because the difference between 1 cent and $1 million could be staring you in the face. The rarest coins aren't hidden in museums, they're hiding in plain sight. And nowhere is that more true than with the 2009 no mint mark memorial penny. One man's pocket change became a miracle worth millions. And if you're listening closely, you now know the secret that most people overlook. This coin almost ended up in a handful of loose change, but instead, it stunned collectors by being valued at nearly $1 million. A single penny. 1 cent struck in 1964 at the Denver Mint, marked with a tiny D. A coin so ordinary, so common, that most people would never give it a second look, and yet, hidden within some of these 1964 D Lincoln Memorial cents lies a mistake so rare, so extraordinary, that it has changed lives. Why would a coin that was minted in the billions suddenly rise to a value no one thought possible? The answer is stranger than fiction, and if you've ever held a 1964 penny in your hand, you might have held a fortune without even knowing it. Collectors were shocked when stories began to circulate, whispers of unusual 1964 D pennies appearing at auctions, tales of one coin selling for tens of thousands, then another reaching into the hundreds of thousands, and finally, one example, pristine and flawless, that climbed toward the unthinkable, close to $1 million. The truth begins in a turbulent moment in U.S. history. The year was 1964. The nation was in transition. Silver coins were still being struck, but rumors swirled of shortages and economic strain. The mint was under pressure, rushing to produce coins as fast as possible to meet America's growing demand, and in the chaos of that year's production, mistakes slipped through. At the Denver Mint, presses struck millions of Lincoln cents, but under intense pressure, dies wore out quickly. They were sometimes re-engraved, sometimes overpunched, sometimes even misaligned. And that is where the mystery begins. One particular die produced an error so unusual that when the coins finally reached circulation, almost no one noticed that it looked normal, but under close inspection, collectors found something chilling. Some of the 1964 D pennies show doubled features, Lincoln's date, his profile, or the word liberty slightly doubled from a misaligned strike. Others reveal faint but unmistakable signs of repunched mint marks, where the D was stamped more than once, at slightly different angles. And still others were struck with defects that gave them unique appearances, weak strikes, off-center impressions, or mysterious die clashes. Alone, any of these might add a little value, but together, under the right conditions, with flawless surfaces and shimmering red luster untouched by time, these flaws transformed into miracles. Dealers rushed to get their hands on them, collectors could hardly believe it, and at auction, when one of these rarities appeared, bidding wars broke out like storms. Prices climbed higher, higher, and then shocked the world. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. But here's the part that keeps collectors awake at night. Most of these coins are still out there, lying forgotten in drawers, tucked inside old jars, buried in piggy banks that haven't been opened in decades. Every day, someone could unknowingly spend a fortune at a gas station, or drop it into a vending machine, and never realize what they had just lost. And yet, if you know what to look for, you might just find one. Imagine holding a handful of change, and noticing, just barely, that the date looks strange. A second outline, a faint doubling, a tiny D mint mark that seems to have been struck twice. Your heart skips a beat, your hands shake. The penny everyone else overlooked, but you discovered. Collectors call these coins $1 million sleepers, ordinary on the outside, but extraordinary when revealed, and the 1964 D penny is one of the most dangerous of them all, because it's so common, so deceptively normal, that most people never even glance at it twice. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. At an auction held not long ago, a single 1964 D penny in nearly perfect condition, with blazing red surfaces and a rare double die error, drew in bids so high that spectators gasped. When the hammer finally fell, the number displayed was life-changing, close to $1 million, for a penny. Think about that. 0.1 cent, transformed into $1 million. The kind of return that defies belief, the kind of discovery that makes legends out of ordinary people. But here's the secret. Most collectors don't realize, not every 1964 D penny is valuable. Most are worth just a cent some, a few dollars if they're uncirculated, but the real treasures, the ones that turn heads and make history, are those with hidden errors and flawless preservation. First, the mint mark. Look closely at the D. If it appears doubled, repunched, or oddly shaped, you may be holding something special. Second, the date and design. Check the 1964 carefully, look for doubling, extra outlines, or faint shadows around the numbers or letters. And third, the condition. If your penny still shines with fiery red luster, untouched by wear, it could be a candidate for grading, and grading is where fortunes are made. Coins certified at the highest levels, MS-66, MS-67, even MS-68, are the ones that bring six-figure, even million-dollar prices. Collectors were shocked when these details came to light. Suddenly, everyday pocket change was no longer ordinary. It was a battlefield of hidden treasures, and those who paid attention, who took the time to look closely, walked away with riches beyond imagination. One man found his fortune in a roll of pennies he bought at the bank. Another spotted his prize in an old family coin jar that had been sitting untouched for decades, and yet another collector discovered his life changing penny at a flea market, sold for less than $1. Each story feels like a miracle, and yet, it keeps happening, because millions of 1964 D pennies were struck, and only a fraction have ever been examined. That means, somewhere out there, $1 million penny is waiting, maybe in your home, maybe in your pocket, maybe in the change you'll get tomorrow. So the next time you see a penny, stop, look closer. Examine the date, check the mint mark, search for the doubling that others missed, because this exact coin, the 1964 D Lincoln Memorial penny, has already changed lives, and it could change yours. 1 cent. One discovery. $1 million. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it became one of the most valuable pennies in American history. A 1976 D Lincoln Memorial penny, a coin most people would ignore without a second thought, has been discovered to be worth as much as $1.10 million. Think about that for a moment. A single cent, struck nearly 50 years ago, hiding in plain sight, suddenly transformed into a fortune. How could this happen? Why would a coin so ordinary become the obsession of collectors across the nation? The answer lies in a story of mistakes, mysteries, and miracles. Back in 1976, America was celebrating its bicentennial. Flags waved, parades filled the streets, and special coins like the quarter, half-dollar, and dollar were struck with patriotic designs. But not the penny. The humble Lincoln Memorial cent carried on unchanged, or so it seemed. Yet, within the Denver Mint that year, something extraordinary slipped through the cracks. At first glance, the 1976 D penny looks like every other copper coin of the era. The date, 1976. The tiny D mint mark, signifying Denver. The memorial reverse, with its stately columns. Nothing unusual, right? But beneath the surface, hidden flaws and shocking minting errors turned ordinary coins into once-in-a-lifetime treasures. Collectors began to notice oddities. Double strikes on Lincoln's portrait. Weak strikes where letters nearly vanished. And even stranger, a handful of coins struck on experimental planchets not meant for pennies at all. These were not simple imperfections, they were golden tickets, worth hundreds of thousands of dollars each. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One lucky collector, sifting through what seemed like ordinary pocket change, pulled out a 1976 D penny that was far from ordinary. When he had it graded, experts were floored. The coin's condition, its unique striking error, and its rarity made it one of the finest known examples. that single penny later commanded offers approaching $1 million. Imagine the emotion in that moment. A man staring at a coin he could have spent on a gumball, suddenly realizing he held the key to a life-changing fortune. 1 cent, transformed into $1.10 million. The value of these pennies isn't only in their errors. Some 1976 cents, preserved in immaculate condition, untouched, uncirculated, still shining as if freshly struck, have shattered expectations at auction. Dealers battle fiercely over them. Bidding wars erupt. Collectors dig deep into their pockets, desperate to own a flawless survivor of America's bicentennial year. But here's where it gets even more fascinating. Most people would overlook the clues that separate a regular penny from a fortune. That tiny D mint mark on the front of the coin can hold secrets. Some were struck slightly off, doubled, or misplaced. Others show unusual wear that reveals a rare minting anomaly. It's these microscopic details, things the average eye might miss, that transform one coin out of millions into a seven-figure miracle. Dealers were shocked when these pennies began climbing to million-dollar heights. Some even scoffed at the idea. But auction after auction proved them wrong. The market spoke loudly. People will pay extraordinary sums for perfection, rarity, and mystery combined. And here's the part that should make your heart race: these coins are still out there. Sitting in drawers. Hiding in piggy banks. Lurking in coffee cans passed down from grandparents. How many people have unknowingly spent a fortune at the grocery store? How many priceless coins have slipped through fingers unnoticed? The thought is chilling and inspiring. What if tonight, you opened that old jar of pennies, and there, mixed among the ordinary, was your $1 million miracle? That's not a fantasy. It has already happened. And it could happen again. Now, let's talk about how you can identify this exact coin. 1976. Next, look for the D mint mark under the date. If it's sharp, clear, and perfectly struck, you may have a coin worth examining further. But here's where it gets crucial: inspect Lincoln's portrait closely. Look for doubling on his profile, especially around the nose, mouth, or chin. On some valuable varieties, the doubling is unmistakable. Flip the coin over. The Lincoln memorial should be crisp, but on rare errors, the columns blur or vanish. Some coins show strange planchet streaks or even off-center strikes, and above all, condition matters. A pristine, uncirculated 1976 D penny is a prize in itself, and with the right error, it becomes a treasure worth more than gold. Don't make the mistake of assuming your penny is worthless just because it looks normal. Many people have done that, only to later realize they spent away their shot at $1 million. Collectors are rushing to get their hands on these coins. Dealers are scouring shows and auctions, searching for the next record breaker, and you, yes, you, might already own one without even knowing it. So tonight, when you go through your change, don't just glance at the pennies. Hold them up to the light. Study the date. Inspect that D mint mark with care. Because one tiny detail could unlock a fortune. This isn't just a story about a coin. It's a story about possibility. About how the smallest, most ordinary things in life can hold unimaginable value if you know where to look. 1 cent, one discovery, one miracle. And remember this: the 1976 D Lincoln Memorial penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it's now worth up to $1.2 million. Yes, you heard that right. A simple 2006 penny, the kind you probably spent without a second thought, has shocked the coin world with a value that could change someone's life forever. And the story behind it is unlike anything you've ever heard. Back in 2006, the U.S. Mint in Denver struck billions of Lincoln Memorial cents. To most people, these were nothing more than spare change, tokens for vending machines, or loose coins sliding under car seats. But hidden among those billions, a tiny handful were struck with a mysterious flaw. A flaw so rare, so unexpected, that it transformed an ordinary 1 cent piece into $1 million miracle. And here's where the story gets unbelievable. One collector stumbled upon one of these strange 2006 Denver pennies in what looked like ordinary pocket change. At first glance, it seemed normal. But then, something caught his eye. The color. The strike. The faintest doubling on the lettering. He leaned closer, and what he saw nearly made his heart stop, because this wasn't just another penny. This was a coin with a hidden secret, born from a minting mistake so elusive that only the sharpest eyes in the world could spot it. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. The coin was sent to auction, and when it crossed the block, dealers who had dismissed 2006 pennies as junk suddenly found themselves in a bidding war. The price climbed. Then it climbed again. Collectors gasped. The room went silent. And when the final gavel fell, this 1-cent piece had sold for over $1 million. The answer lies in the mystery of the minting process. You see, most 2006 Denver pennies are common, you can find them in pocket change even today. But a few were struck with errors. Off-center strikes, doubled dies, and even rare transitional mistakes connected to the shift in planchet composition. These errors turned an everyday coin into an object of obsession. Most people will never notice. They'll spend them. They'll toss them into jars. They'll let them vanish into circulation forever, never realizing they were holding the key to $1 million in their hand. Collectors were shocked when the first confirmed discovery hit the market. Dealers rushed to study every 2006 penny they could find. Some coins sold for thousands. A few sold for tens of thousands. And the rarest of the rare, the ones with the sharpest doubling, the cleanest errors, the absolute top condition, soared to 6 figures, then 7. But this is where it gets even more unbelievable. There are still coins out there. Coins that slipped through the cracks, unnoticed. Coins hiding in change jars, old wallets, and coffee cans. And anyone could be the next lucky finder. Imagine reaching into your pocket and pulling out a penny that could erase debt, pay for a home, or set your grandchildren up for life. That's what makes the 2006 penny story so extraordinary. It's not just about history. It's about chance. Fate. The dream of the impossible hiding in plain sight. Look carefully. On the 2006 penny, pay special attention to the details. Check the date, look closely for doubling, especially on the 2 and 6. Inspect the letters Liberty and In God We Trust. Some rare varieties show doubling so subtle you might miss it without magnification. Others display striking off-center images, or strange planchet flaws that make the coin look just slightly off, and condition matters. Coins in pristine, uncirculated condition can multiply in value by hundreds of thousands of dollars. A small scratch could mean the difference between 10 cents and $1 million. Collectors whisper about the 2006 Denver double die varieties, with their ghostly images layered across the coin. They talk about off-metal errors, coins struck on planchets that were never meant for the Lincoln cent. And when one of these surfaces, the frenzy begins all over again. But here's the part that gives collectors chills: most of the $1 million coins weren't found in dusty coin shops. They weren't sitting in locked vaults. They were found in everyday change. A gas station clerk. A teenager's pocket. A man cashing in coins at a grocery store. The miracle of the 2006 penny is that it hides in the most ordinary places, and only the sharpest eyes catch it before it disappears again. Dealers are still hunting. Auctions are still waiting. And the next discovery could break every record we've seen so far. Because if one 2006 penny can bring $1.2 million, who knows what the next could be worth. So the next time you see a 2006 penny with that tiny D beneath the date, don't dismiss it. Hold it up to the light. Look for doubling. Study the strike. Compare its weight and edges. Because the difference between ordinary and life-changing could be hiding in the smallest of details. What if this coin is different? What if this coin is special? What if this penny is worth more than I ever imagined? The story of the 2060 Lincoln Memorial penny is proof that miracles can be made of copper and zinc. Proof that a single cent can transform into $1 million. Proof that history, chance, and fortune sometimes collide in the most unexpected ways. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This penny almost ended up in a coin jar, forgotten, ignored, and treated as nothing more than pocket change. But when it finally surfaced, collectors could hardly believe their eyes. That ordinary-looking 1991 penny, with no mint mark, shocked the coin world, selling for nearly $1 million. And here's the twist, some experts now believe a few of these rare survivors could be worth up to $1.3 million today. At first glance, it's just another Lincoln Memorial cent copper-plated zinc, barely a cent in value. Something you'd toss on the counter without thinking twice. But this coin hides a secret. A mistake so rare, so easily overlooked, that it turned everyday pocket change into a life-changing fortune. And the only question left is, could you be holding one of these miracle pennies without even knowing it? To understand the mystery of the 1991 no mint mark penny, we need to travel back in time. The year was 1991, the Lincoln Memorial design had already been in circulation for decades. Pennies were struck by the billions. But that year, deep inside the U.S. Mint, something unusual happened. A die meant for a coin with a mint mark somehow slipped through the cracks. The result? A small number of 1991 Lincoln cents left the mint floor missing the tiny letter that should have identified where they were made. That missing mint mark is the single detail that turned this common penny into one of the most valuable coins of modern times. Collectors were stunned when the first examples appeared. Imagine being the person who noticed it. You're going through your change, and something feels off. You hold the coin closer. You check again. No D for Denver. No S for San Francisco. Just a clean, empty space. What most people would overlook in a heartbeat, one sharp-eyed collector recognized as extraordinary, but what happened next stunned the entire coin world. When the first 1991 no mint mark penny went to auction, dealers lined up with wallets wide open. The bidding war was fierce, numbers climbing higher and higher. By the time the gavel fell, the humble penny had transformed into $1 million miracle. And whispers began spreading, how many more could still be out there? Most people who ever touched one of these coins had no idea. They spent them at gas stations, vending machines, grocery store counters. Lost forever into circulation. But the few that survived, the few that escaped unnoticed, became treasures unlike anything else in modern numismatics. One man in Ohio discovered his 1991 no mint mark penny in a small collection left behind by his father. At first, he thought it was nothing. But after a second look, he sent it off to be authenticated. The result? His father's forgotten coin was now worth more than his house. Dealers rushed to outbid one another, and that coin story alone still circulates in hushed tones among collectors today. This tiny detail, that missing mint mark, is why it's worth millions. And most people miss it. They don't even know where to look, and here's where the story takes an even stranger turn. By 1991, the mint had nearly perfected its quality control. Errors of this scale were practically unheard of. That's why the survival of the 1991 no mint mark penny is a mystery that continues to baffle even experts. How did it slip out? How many were struck? And why did so few survive? Collectors who chase these rarities often describe the thrill like a hunt for buried treasure. One man compared it to gold prospecting, endless searching, endless hoping, until one day, the earth reveals its secret. And in this case, the treasure fits in the palm of your hand, but don't be fooled. There are imitations, counterfeits, and wishful mistakes. Thousands of people have confused a worn-out mint mark for a missing one. And that's the danger, because spotting the real thing requires sharp eyes, patience, and knowledge, and yet, the reward is almost unimaginable. 1 cent suddenly worth $1.3 million. 1 penny changing the course of someone's life forever. Tossed pennies into a jar. Left them rattling in your car. Any one of those forgotten coins could carry this secret. And most people will never know. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins. Collectors whisper about them at shows and conventions, as if speaking too loudly might give away the secret. Because once one appears on the market, competition is brutal. Every eye in the room locks onto it. Every bidder knows, this is a once-in-a-lifetime chance. What if someone, maybe you, is holding on to one without realizing it? Now let's pull back the curtain. If you want to know whether your 1991 penny is one of the $1,000,000 rarities, here's what you need to do. First, check the date, it must say 1991. Then, carefully look just below the date, near Lincoln's shoulder. That's where the mint mark should be. Normally, you'd see a tiny D for Denver. If your coin has no letter at all, no D, no S, nothing, you might be holding one of the rarest pennies ever struck, but here's the catch. Don't confuse a faded or worn-out mint mark with the true no mint mark rarity. A genuine error will show no trace of a letter at all, not even under magnification. That's the difference between a penny worth 1 cent, and a penny worth over $1,000,000. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, look again. When you pass by that dusty jar of coins, don't ignore it. Because history has proven that even the smallest coin can carry the biggest secret. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1,000,000. This coin almost ended up in the trash, yet it turned into a jaw-dropping treasure worth over $1,000,000. Imagine that. A single penny, the kind you've seen 1,000 times before, suddenly becoming the key to a life-changing fortune. At first glance, the 1988 D. Lincoln Memorial 1-cent coin looks ordinary. Copper-plated zinc, Lincoln's proud profile on the front, the grand memorial on the back. Millions were struck, billions passed through hands across the country. But among those countless coins, a few rare survivors hold a secret so powerful, collectors are willing to bid up to $1.4 million just to own them. Now here's the twist, the story of this penny doesn't begin with wealth. It begins with error. A mistake at the U.S. Mint so subtle, so nearly invisible, that most people have spent these coins without a second thought. But for the few who spot it, the reward is staggering. Dealers have been stunned. Auction houses whisper about it with reverence. One coin in particular shook the entire coin-collecting world when it surfaced. It didn't come from a bank vault. It didn't come from a museum. It came from someone's pocket change, but what happened next stunned everyone. The owner almost tossed it aside. To them, it was just another penny. But a tiny detail, a single clue on this 1988 D mint mark Lincoln penny, changed everything. Some of these 1988 pennies carry the wrong design on Lincoln's portrait. A mule error, where the obverse and reverse die don't match as they should. Lincoln's portrait carries subtle details from the following year, 1989, creating an impossible hybrid coin most eyes would never notice. But under magnification, the secret is revealed, and the coin becomes worth not just hundreds, not just thousands, but up to $1,000,000. Collectors were floored. Dealers began scrambling. Bidding wars erupted. And the price climbed higher, and higher, until one of these pennies was valued at a staggering $1.4 million. Think about that. A penny worth more than a luxury home. A penny worth more than a lifetime of wages. And yet it slipped through the minting presses, through circulation, hiding in plain sight. But what makes this coin truly mesmerizing is the way it hides its fortune. The Denver Mint struck billions of pennies in 1988. But the flawed dies? Only a tiny handful. The odds of finding one are astronomically small, and yet, someone already has. Which means another could still be out there. This is why coin hunters today check every single penny. Because this story proves, the treasure is real. One man in Colorado once told the story of how he discovered a 1988 D penny like this in his pocket after buying a soda. At first he thought nothing of it. But something looked off. The lettering, the details, the feel of it. And when he had it examined, the experts nearly fainted. He wasn't holding a penny. He was holding $1 million miracle, and this is where the mystery deepens. Experts believe the mule errors of 1988 were caused by the wrong obverse die being paired with the reverse intended for that year's penny. It slipped past inspection, struck coins, and escaped into circulation. A mistake so rare, even one example is enough to change a collector's life forever, yes. And that's what keeps the coin world buzzing. Because every time a collector dumps out a jar of change, every time a dealer sorts through a bulk lot of pennies, the hope lingers. What if the next coin is the one? Now here's the part that matters most. How do you know if you're staring at a fortune, or just another penny? The answer lies in the tiniest details of Lincoln's design. Look at the obverse, his portrait. On the rare mule era 1988D, Lincoln's bust matches the 1989 style. The spacing of the letters, the shape of the mint mark, even the subtle angle of his features give away the impossible pairing. Collectors are trained to search with magnifiers, because these differences are razor thin. But once spotted, they scream authenticity. And with authenticity comes fortune. The bidding frenzy was unlike anything seen in decades. Auctioneers described the atmosphere as electric. Phones rang off the hook. Wealthy investors, private collectors, and even museums all tried to secure the coin. And when the hammer finally dropped, the price sent shockwaves, over $1 million for a single 1-cent piece. This coin could be anywhere. In a jar of pennies in Ohio. In a bankroll in Texas. In a change drawer in California. These coins were released into circulation, which means they could still be hiding in plain sight. And someone listening right now could be the next person to uncover one. Collectors know the thrill. The heart-racing moment when you flip a coin under the light, and see something different. That tiny difference is why this 1988D penny is worth a fortune, and why dealers are still hunting relentlessly for the next one. But don't be fooled. Not every 1988D penny is valuable. Millions are common, worth face value. Only the mule era variety carries the $1 million secret. Which means patience, sharp eyes, and knowledge are your tools for unlocking this treasure. So here's how to identify it. Take a 1988D penny. Check the obverse carefully. If Lincoln's design looks like the 1989 portrait, with sharper lines, slightly different lettering, and mismatched details compared to the reverse, you may have found the impossible. Confirm with a trusted grading service. Because that single penny, if verified, could be worth life-changing money. Collectors call it the discovery of a lifetime. Dealers call it the holy grail of modern pennies. And you? You might just call it your miracle, because somewhere out there, in a pocket, in a drawer, in a forgotten jar of change, a 1988D Lincoln Memorial 1-cent penny is waiting to be found. And when it is, the person who finds it will hold in their hand a piece of copper-plated zinc worth up to $1.4 million. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it stunned collectors by being worth more than $1 million. Imagine digging through loose change, not thinking twice, and pulling out a simple brown penny, a coin so ordinary, most people wouldn't even glance at it. Yet hidden in that tiny circle of copper lies a secret that has rocked the coin collecting world. This is the story of the 2007 Lincoln Memorial penny. A penny that, in rare cases, has been valued at up to $1.5 million. At first glance, the 2007 penny seems completely ordinary. It was minted in Denver, with the small D mint mark stamped proudly under the year. Billions of them were produced. Billions. People spent them at gas stations, dropped them in vending machines, tossed them in piggy banks. To the average eye, it's nothing more than spare change, but deep within those billions, a tiny fraction carried mistakes. Errors so rare, so unthinkable, that when collectors discovered them, the value shot through the roof. And this is where the story takes a shocking turn, because what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One collector, a man who'd been casually searching through rolls of pennies from his local bank, almost gave up. He had gone through hundreds, maybe thousands of coins, his fingers stained with copper, his eyes growing tired. But then, he spotted something unusual. The penny in his hand didn't look quite right. The date seemed slightly doubled. The lettering appeared thicker. And when he tilted it under the light, the mint mark, that little D, looked strange. What he held was no ordinary coin. It was a minting mistake that would change his life. Auction houses confirmed it. This was a rare 2007D variety, struck with an error so significant it pushed the value into the stratosphere. Bidding wars broke out. Collectors fought tooth and nail, each desperate to claim it. Prices skyrocketed. What started as pocket change transformed into a miracle. 1 cent, became over $1 million, and here's where the mystery deepens: most 2007 pennies are worth exactly 1 cent. Some, in uncirculated condition, maybe $1 or $2. But only a few, a tiny handful, hide this life-changing mistake. And the terrifying truth? You could easily pass it by. Think about it. How many times have you tossed a penny aside, left it on the counter, or ignored it at the bottom of a drawer? Collectors now whisper that millions of dollars in value might still be hiding in forgotten jars of coins, waiting for someone with sharp eyes and a little luck. The answer is in the details. Some carry dramatic doubling on the obverse, that's the front of the coin. On Lincoln's profile, you might see shadows of his image, a ghostly second strike. The words, "In God We Trust," may appear thicker or doubled. The year, 2007, may show extra impressions, almost like a hidden outline, and then, of course, there's the mint mark itself. Some rare 2007 pennies show striking misplacements, unusual impressions, or tiny distortions that set them apart. To the average person, it's just a smudge. But to a trained collector, it's the key to a fortune. But here's the part that makes this story unforgettable. One man, not a professional collector, found his $1 million penny while cleaning out his late father's belongings. Inside a dusty old coffee can filled with loose change sat the coin that would rewrite his family's destiny. When it was later authenticated and sold at auction, the hammer price left even seasoned dealers speechless. 1 penny. One miracle. Over $1.5 million, and the whispers keep spreading. Could there be more out there? Could the next life-changing coin be sitting in someone's wallet at this very moment? The answer, chilling as it is yes. Collectors are now scouring bank rolls, digging through old jars, and turning their pockets inside out. Dealers are paying record prices, and auctions are heating up like never before. Because each time one of these rare 2007 errors surfaces, the bidding frenzy grows more intense. Check the obverse, Lincoln's profile. Look closely under magnification for doubling in his features or in the words around the edge. Pay special attention to the date. If the numbers seem thicker, if they appear shadowed, you may be holding something extraordinary. Next, examine the D mint mark. Some errors show unusual doubling, distortion, or even misplaced marks. These small imperfections can make the difference between pocket change and life-changing wealth. And finally, condition matters. A flawless, uncirculated example skyrockets in value. Coins fresh from rolls or sets, untouched by years of circulation, carry the greatest potential. But here's the haunting reality: millions of Americans have handled these pennies without ever knowing. They've spent them, dropped them, ignored them. And yet, in the right light, with the right eye, one of those very coins could unlock unimaginable fortune. Collectors were shocked when the first examples crossed the auction block. Dealers whispered that a new legend had been born. And ordinary people suddenly realized that the next millionaire might not be a Wall Street investor or a lottery winner, but someone who spotted a tiny error on a copper coin. The story of the 2007 penny is not just about money. It's about possibility. It's about hope. It's about the idea that something so small, so ordinary, can carry within it the power to change everything. So tonight, before you toss your spare change aside, take a closer look. Hold that 2007 penny to the light. Study it. Because somewhere out there, hidden in plain sight, is a coin worth more than $1.5 million, and it might be in your pocket right now. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer, waiting to be discovered. And if it is, your life may never be the same again.